We may have a few other people log in. It's just after 4 o'clock, but I'm going to just say welcome to SeesAwesome this afternoon. I'm here with Chris Messer from Barnesville, Minnesota. And I'm Darcy. I work at Prairie Public, but I was a high school English teacher. So Seesaw is new to me as well, which is why I brought in a pro, because Chris is a Seesaw ambassador and is someone who will be able to answer your questions, will be able to just take us through a lot of
or jot them down.
So I'm going to turn my camera off, and you're going to be able to just see me for a little while. And I'm not sure what this guy is. So I'll go back here.
It looks like fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was, but we're here. I'm Darcy. This is Chris. She's on board. As we go through today, please feel free to throw questions in the chat box. So today is all about helping you. Chris already knows how to use Seesaw, and she's very excited about it, and I love hearing her stories. But today is about what you want to learn about Seesaw. So feel free, please, please, please throw your questions in so that you're getting the information that you want today as we go through. All of our contact information is here. And today, our main objectives are to explore Seesaw. What is it? Why you should use it. You're going to experience Seesaw as a student so that you get the full experience and are able to help troubleshoot tech with your kids. And then Chris has layered into this presentation as well as into the tip sheet just tons of classroom ideas, different ways to set up Seesaw, different ways to use it and to maximize it. So I think that there will be a little bit for everyone. This bit.ly link is the same thing. It is the link to our tip sheet, so I'll throw that in there again. It's just a Google Doc, so do a save as, and you'll have everything at your fingertips. So, what is Seesaw? I am going to throw this over to Chris now and let her walk us through some of these basics about Seesaw.
I have been made the presenter. Okay, this is my first webinar, so to speak. So I gotta find my thing. So show my screen. And make sure I'm showing the right screen.
Yep.
I'm on the right screen. I need to hit play. Correct?
Yes.
What is Seesaw? And present. Well, oh, I'm sorry. So,
and I think this is a fine place.
This is the life I lead, is what this is.
Of things going faster than we're ready for them going. It sounds like most people have some introductory knowledge of Seesaw, but from this little basic thing here, my understanding of Seesaw, and correct me, Chris, if I'm wrong, my understanding is you can use it as a digital portfolio. You can use it so students can kind of video their reflections of here's what I learned today. They can take pictures. You can live stream what's going on in your classroom. And in general, use it as a way to then share all that same information back out to parents.
Correct. Seesaw can basically, I kind of look at it as Seesaw opens up my classroom to the families it's almost like the parents get a little sneak peek at what the kindergartners are doing each day. A lot of times my kiddos will they'll be doing their daily five, for example, and they'll have had a wow moment, and all of a sudden they've figured out that they put that magic E at the end of the word hop and it says hope. Mrs. Messer, can I seesaw that? And all of a sudden at 11:05 in the morning, a parent gets a little bling on their Apple Watch or a little message on their iPhone that there's a new post on Seesaw, and right into their child's journal. It goes right just to that child's journal, just to that parent. It comes to me first. I would say, oh yeah, that's great. And all of a sudden the parent sees, oh my gosh, my child just learned a little something about the magic E. And they didn't have to wait till 6 o'clock at supper to learn that. So I just think it's so instant, and it's kind of the society we're in right now. Everything is right in here and right now. But how cool to get that little snippet of your child's day. But this little video on the screen we had found, and it kind of shows you that. It shows how the kids are just quick to show something that happened at school, something that they've learned, an activity, and just how quick they are to figure out how to maneuver their way through Seesaw. Because, yeah, my kindergartners are pretty masterful at it. So should we watch a little bit of it?
Sure.
Second or two.
And you might have to turn your volume all the way up because videos are kind of tough.
So Seesaw is a new program that we started this year. It's on the iPads. It really is.
I'm supposed to go full screen, but.
So Seesaw is a new program that we started this year. It's on the iPads. It really is, to the core, a communication device between parent, teacher, and student. What makes it such a neat program or app is that it's really student-driven.
Seesaw is a digital portfolio for kids. It's a safe and secure program that only your students and parents, if wanted, and other teachers can access.
Seesaw is basically a Facebook page, but kid friendly. You can take pictures and post them, and you can comment, and it's for sharing what you've learned and sharing with your friends, and it's really fun. I like it. You only post learning stuff, like this was for science, and we post it on Seesaw, and then it will, like, our parents have Seesaw app, so after we do it, it will send it to our parents, and our parents can see what we learned for the day, like at science or reading or whatever, like writing.
One of my favorite things about Seesaw is that they get notifications when their child posts something, and that they could go in at any time during the day and listen to their child's voice and listen to what they are learning in the language that they are using in the classroom.
Watching them work.
I think it's really cool how they associate it with Facebook, because who doesn't know how to maneuver through Facebook? So
yeah. In the comments, Sarah and I were both commenting that this also, from a parent perspective, takes away that kid saying, well, when you ask your child, what did you do in school today? And the kid saying, oh no, it removes that, because now parents know what their child was doing that day. And I've heard both from my own sister, who's the mother of a 6th grade boy, but also from other moms, seemingly more so of boys, who say that this has completely changed how conversations happen at their house. Because now, instead of asking that generic, what did you do in school today question, she can ask very targeted, specific questions. And so it's really unlocked this parent-child communication. So as much as it's about classroom to parent communication, it can also really be a lovely thing to help facilitate parent-to-child communication too, of talking about what you're learning in class that day and helping parents model that their education and what they're doing in school is important to them as parents.
Right. Gives you a conversation starter for maybe that 1 or 2 days a week that you actually all get to sit at the dinner table together. I know that's rare at my house with 3 children at different ages, but just to be able to say, oh, I saw your post on, you were learning about Abraham Lincoln this week. What was something you learned? Oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. Yeah, it's a good conversation starter. And then I know my kids, my students really love going back at looking at posts that we post on our journal page that they can all see. You can do private ones that go just to the particular family, or journal ones that goes to all students, and they love looking back at some of the different things that we've done as a group too. So that's something that they say, oh yeah, I was watching that back at home. So they always love to go back and see what they have in their journals. So but yeah, we kind of touched on some of the reasons why teachers love Seesaw. Anybody have any other questions on?
I think this is great. It's a nice introduction to digital media skills. We all, as kids are growing up now, just inundated with technology. It's really easy to think that kids are tech saturated, which is true, but that does not mean that they're tech savvy. It does not mean that they're tech literate. And so Seesaw feels like a nice introductory tool for young kids, but also can be really taken in advanced directions for older students to really develop those 21st century technology skills, so that we're building students who are tech savvy, not just tech saturated.
And tech safe. That's a big thing for especially these little ones that I deal with. And well, I think about the older ones too, where they're going to get into, or they potentially could get into different things that they shouldn't. Here in Barnesville, we have one-on-one iPads. So K through 12, they have their own devices. So in the older grades, they do take them back and forth. Mine just stay here in the classroom. But just teaching them how to carry the tool, how to operate the tool, different things like that. So they're learning not only about this app, but they're learning how to care for the device as well, and safety of the device, and where you can go on the device, what apps are okay, where, just to follow the rules, because it's very specific as to how they can operate it and when they can go to Seesaw, and they always know to ask what is appropriate to put on Seesaw and different things like that too. So yes, they learn that there's a lot of rules and safety features, and how to be tech savvy and tech safe, I think, is very important too. So.
And then I think, like you said, we've talked about a lot of these why teachers love it, of being able to organize information, communicate with families. And so let's dive into some of your examples. What are some of your favorite? I think you have some on the next slide. What are some of your favorite ways that you're using Seesaw in the classroom?
Well, I always like to say being a fly on the wall, and I have a few of those examples. One, I organize my Seesaw into different folders. So I have what's called, we do our Steve Dunn writing. So for example, I have, it's gonna go to so my students will take a picture of their writing, and I, for the life of me, could not get this to turn the right way. So everybody can rest their heads, because we've all had a long day, right? So they take a picture of it, and then they do their dot and say, and they read it. So the parents are seeing what they've written, and then they're practicing reading what they wrote. And it's a way, for one thing, you're saving a lot of papers going to and from home, but also they have a digital record of their.
I went in the the happy they were born last night.
So in this little girl's Steve Dunn writing folder, she has examples of her writing as they've changed throughout the course of the school year. So it's kind of neat to have that digital footprint of that.
And I love the power of that example, Chris, of being able to, there's a clear example you could share with a parent at conferences. There's a clear example that a student now, when it comes to May, and that same student records another example, you're going to be able to have that student play that example and their new example, and they are going to be able to see their own growth, their own learning in a completely visual and auditory way, that it's not a question anymore of how much they've learned and how much they've grown. And I think that's another powerful thing, both for the kids and certainly for the parents, to be able to see, just look at how much you've improved from this month to a couple months later.
Right. Another one that I have the kids do, like I'd mentioned before, during Daily 5 or Math Daily 3, as they're working in their centers, you can't always get over to where the kids are working in their different groups. So I'll have them seesaw, or I just call it seesaw what you've been doing. And so they can do an example of what they're working on in that center. And so we did this. This was a math activity we did at Christmas time.
This is my math problem. I made it from.
Oh, I apologize. Because I wasn't tech savvy.
This is my math problem. I made it by myself because it's so cool.
And I had to choose Miss Grace's because she made it by herself because she's so cool. I love listening to her recordings because she's always very proud of herself. But we were working on some math problems, so they did a little hands-on and then they recorded themselves. I also do a lot of STEM in my class. So they'll build things with marshmallows or different things like that. Well, over on the right, there's a little Lego building that they did, and this one was very cool. And a lot of STEM things you obviously can't send home. And this little guy who did a lot of stuff last year, and he was an amazing student, very, very smart. Last year, I didn't have nearly as many families get logged into Seesaw, and so that was a big goal of mine this year, was to really have everybody on Seesaw before school even started, which I actually did. But his family was one that never did log in, and he probably had more things in his journal than any other student. So that kind of made me a little bit sad, but this was a really cool thing that he created.
Okay, go ahead.
I built this maze out of Legos from Marvel.
And what are you trying to do with the marble?
I'm trying to move it around and not try to get it out.
It was a lot of fun. So STEM is another really cool use. One other one that I use Seesaw a lot for is, you know, when it comes to assessment time and you need to, or even guided reading time, and you need to listen to everybody read, and you have 17 or 22 or however many students you have, and you really need to listen to everybody read and you're running out of time. You can have them seesaw, or they really want to read to mom and dad and they say, oh, mom and just didn't have time to listen to me read this book. Let's send them, let's seesaw them, you reading. And so I had my little buddy here read for his mom and dad.
This is a skate.
I loved how he kept showing the pictures.
This is a plate. This is a gate.
So as they're learning reading skills, and have you ever used Seesaw to help do fluency checks? for students as they're doing their reading fluency?
Wait, this is a.
Well, I do in a way just for myself to listen, but I don't use Seesaw for assessing so much. Maybe for the guided reading if I can't get to everybody to listen to them. But I have a different online assessment program that I use. But I actually have, with the Seesaw Ambassador, I do have access to the skills, and I actually did start playing around with that. So this year, or right now, I chose 2. So right now I have all of their things that they do in the writing. I can't remember the other one, but everything that they do with writing this year is going to go to their skills. So it'll start tracking as they're writing. I'm tracking their skills with that. So I'm teaching myself the skills this year because I hadn't used it in the past because I was tracking with a different program. So I'm teaching myself that. So.
And I think that's a good tip. Sarah's posted that she usually has her para take pictures or videos of the kids. And I think it's important for us as teachers to remember that we don't have to do everything right away. That when we're learning a new technology tool, when we're learning a new anything, it's okay for us to use it for one thing to start and get comfortable with that so that we're comfortable, so the kids are comfortable, and then to slowly expand that you don't need to jump in and start using Seesaw every single day for everything, but that you can pick a couple strategic ways that you think that it would be helpful of what they're going helpful so that it's maximizing your time in the classroom. Kelly shared that when they're doing station work, she has kids take a photo or a video of their final product at a station, and then they can explain what steps they took to get to that point. So I love the fact that Seesaw really helps students have to articulate their thinking, because certainly the end product is great, but some kids can jump to that end product without really thinking about how they got there. And I think even of my high schoolers in English, to force them to think, to explain their thinking as they were writing a paragraph. What were they trying to accomplish? Who were they writing for? And being able to think out loud would really help all of that. I think we talked about a lot of these parents, why parents like Seesaw. And I'm thinking that we should jump in to the classroom and have everyone get in as students and play a little bit. We can always come back to more of these examples. So as we come back, I'm going to throw up my thing. You should be seeing now. You should now be seeing my screen here. This is me as a student. So we want all of you to log into Seesaw as a student. Please note that when you go in as a student, it's webseesaw.me. So it's not seesaw.com. That will take you to something very different and funky. So don't go there. It's web.seesaw.me. And then our class code, so that we can play around a little bit, is JZBFSV. So I've added that into the chat. And it's also here on the screen. So web.seesaw.me, JZBFSV. So for me personally, anytime I think I'm going to take a tech tool into my classroom, I try to test it as a student, in part because then I know how many hoops the kids have to jump through. And I will say I love that Seesaw is quite fast for students to get into, because they will go to the sign-in, or you can have QR codes lined up.
Yep.
and students, and now I'm already logged in as a student. So I'm in, and I have already made a little activity as a student. And let me go back here to our class code. We would like you to play a little bit as a student. So even those of you who have already used Seesaw, and this is something that you do quite a bit, play as a student just to refresh yourself a little bit and try playing with these different tools. As you log in as a student, it will have you pick a number, just randomly pick a number for yourself and use the photo tool to take a selfie, label, draw, and then submit your journal to the teacher. And then we'll wait a few minutes here while you play as students. And then I'll throw it back over to Chris, and she can show us as a teacher how she moderates things as assignments come into her. So for those of you who are already familiar with this, it's hopefully will just be a nice little refresher of what it looks like for your students. And those of you who are new, you can see what your students see so that you can help them navigate through Seesaw.
There could be, or there should be, an activity called Seesaw Share. I should talk to you about how to do that.
Sure. So Chris, can you just talk to us a little bit as we're doing our assignments? I'm going to leave the little try it out up for right now for just a minute or two, but as you get assignments in, you tell me when you think we're kind of ready to throw it back to your teacher view.
I see somebody who likes flexible seating as much as I do. I've learned that already.
Well, that will be nice to share out of that picture.
So in your, as you're working on that, going through your assignment, there should be a
page. Choose the communication tool as it. Two, let's give a shout out to all things Seesaw. Tell me what you love, what you like, what you want to learn more about. If you have any other queries, let's talk about those.
Are you ready to share some examples, Chris? I'm hearing some things playing in the background.
they're listening to the directions. So yeah, I have a couple unapproved. So when you've done your assignment or you've done the activity and you've shared it with the teacher, it comes to me, the teacher, and then when it comes back to my story, what that looks like for people who haven't worked with the activities yet. I'm kind of looking over at the chat, just wondering if it has worked much with the activities yet, because I've really liked those.
So you should have the command now, Chris, so you could show us as these posts are coming in, how do you manage this in your classroom as kids are making their own little videos and doing things? What do you see?
So can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Yep, okay, good. All right, so this is what happens to my screen is that I get notifications like this, like I have a 2 up here by my name. So I have 2 unapproved posts. So I can review those, and I just click on review, and I get to look at it. And sometimes I comment on it first, and I could, or edit it. Sometimes I might want to put it, share it with the whole class, or maybe 2 or 3 friends participated in that, but we just had one person Seesaw on it, so I can share it with just a couple people in the class, or I can say, love the bulletin board, or love how hard you worked on your reading today, or something like that. And then I just can post that, and then I approve it. And then if there was a parent involved, it would go to the parent. Here's the flexible seating one that I saw that I and see that she also added a banner to it, so that's something else that you can do. This is a private note, so you can have more than one teacher with your class too. There's more than one teacher. If there was something on there that I saw, or maybe there was a concern with a certain spelling or something, I could say, hey, Miss Kim, could you maybe meet with so-and-so, meet with Alicia during daily 5 time, and maybe you practice spelling play a couple more times or something like that. So you can do private notes to teachers too. I can also, if I trust that everybody did everything great, I can just approve all of the posts at the same time too. So that's what.
And I love that extra approval step that kids can't see. So when you approve it, can the other students, so now when I'm in my class, can I see what other people? Sure can. So I can see, and now I can also, like as a student, what other people are posting. So for me as a high school teacher, or really any grade where kids have a little bit more autonomy and can maybe type a little bit more, or they could do audio, I love the fact that I could have them, give them a partner and now do some peer editing, some peer feedback of, all right, go into today's journal list, and I can be assigned to a different person, and I can have to watch their video or read their journal and give them some comments and do a little bit of peer editing right here in Seesaw.
You can do that. I do choose in my, I mean, it's personal preference, or like you said, for older kids, or, you know, for literature or a writing class, your settings can be different. For my, and I left it this way for here, but for my class, I set mine to, let's see, you can do different settings, and right now I have it set so that students can see each other's work. So I went to the wrench over here. That's like the master wrench that the teacher gets. And that's how I can change some different settings. And for me, I have it so that students cannot see each other's work. So I can change that. So
that makes sense for kindergarten, as well as for a lot of assignments, that you wouldn't want everything public all the time, because this should be a safe space for kids to share their ideas, and you don't want it to devolve into something that, you know, just like you said, this is about safe technology, of helping make them tech savvy and tech safe. And so part of that is limiting who can see what. That's a beautiful flexible seating in kindergarten photo.
I was just going to say, I want to be there.
I want to be there too. Like I said, for older students, if I was using something like Seesaw in the high school, that would be a great way for me to do some peer feedback, or for me to do character conversations, right? We just read this book. So now I assign different people have to make a comment as one of the characters in the book. So write a reflection. You have to record your reflection as Juliet, and then whatever character persona you take on, you have to respond to at least 2 other people's posts as your character. So then the person in the class who's Mercutio also has to log in and then has to respond to Romeo. So I could see like a cool interplay of characters going back and forth for some character discussion as a deepening activity. But I love that that simple wrench allows you to turn that feature off and on so that depending on your class, depending on your kids, depending on the project, you don't have to do that.
And in that way, then when you go to approve it, you don't have to, I mean, you can do it individually too. You can edit people and just say, okay, well, and you can change it. So it's not just numbers, it could be people's names in here. So you'd know, okay, well, Addison, you can see it, and Jack, you can see it, and so-and-so, you can see it, but the rest of you can't see it. So, I mean, there's other ways to do it too, but.
That's a nice option too. So if you did want to do a smaller group work with a little bit of peer feedback, you could do that with controlled groups. And maybe that's one of those things that as you're differentiating for learners, and there's that group of 4 or 5 kids who are already done with everything, they're ready to move on to that next. Maybe that next for those 4 or 5 higher flyers is for them to do a peer review session where you can personally put them into a little group, and then they get to do this next activity on Seesaw, but the rest of the class is still finishing that first part of the assignment. So I could see potential here where this could really help you continue to differentiate and continue to push kids who might already be done with something else.
Right. Yep. So, yep. And I learned that a couple of years ago by happenstance, where it dawned on me that, you know, in kindergarten, they come from, well, in every grade, but they come from here to here. And I didn't need the ones that could barely write their name, you know, feeling like, why is that person reading a chapter book and I can't even write my name? They didn't need that. So that's kind of where that became kind of a big deal for me. So
Chris also put together a couple activities for us. And are we ready? Can I jump to some of those activities, Chris?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right, because I really am excited to try this to continue practicing. So now this is in my student view. I hadn't seen this, but I love that as a student, it's telling me I have some assignments here on the activities. So I'm just logged in as a student. So I click on those activities and I know that those are, and I got kicked off. So I will sign back in here. And in this activity, I can see my assignments. So how hard was it for you to set up this activity for us as an assignment, Chris?
They're easy. They are so fun. Those are new this year. The Seesaw activities. They were just started doing those Christmas time or just after Christmas time, and Seesaw's been tweaking how easy they are, and I'm sort of having a blast with them. I even learned how to do emojis on Seesaw. So, well, Darcy and I both just learned how to do Bitmojis in preparation for this. So that kind of drives my 14-year-old daughter insane. Oh my gosh, my mom learned how to do Bitmojis. So
yeah, you're too cool. So as students, if you'll pick one of these assignments as you're logged into your classroom, pick one of these and go and give one of these activities a try as a student. I like that I can play the instructions.
Now you can share your thoughts.
And listen to me.
Write or draw 3 ways.
Yep, so I can, if I'm an auditory learner and I just need that extra little bit, I can do that. So I'm going to do this first little one. And so as you are in as students, play around with some of this. You will have more ideas on how to use Seesaw if you see what the kids see so that you're able to know what they see and be able to be more flexible. So I've got my 3 things. I think I've submitted it.
Well, you should record yourself reading what you typed.
Oh, I should have. And so I just did the
That's all right.
of doing that. So then I can go back in and I could try one of the different things. I'm going to throw it back to Chris so that she can show us how she set up these activities.
So I'm going to take you, if it's all right, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to take you to my current, my current class is Seesaw. So I have some activities in here that I've started. And there's a Seesaw share, so you can actually beg, borrow, and steal as well. So when I'm doing them, you can do some that are saved for later. So I have some that are what I call in the works. So this is the writing one that I created. So when I make them, I will just go to edit so I can do it. So what it does is it gives you a place, you have to name your activity. And then, so there's shortcuts with the little colons there, so where it says photo, there's shortcuts that are the little icons, like the camera, the Seesaw camera, so that when we see the directions, that'll be that camera. So for my little learners, they'll see the camera instead of the word photo. And then record yourself reading your sentence. So this tells them how they're going to record their writing. And then you can add an example. So if I wanted to add an example, or say I wanted to add a template, you can just click on that. And it's exactly how you would add something yourself. If I wanted to link it to something or take a video or something, take a photo, I could just click on a photo, which is kind of hard to do when you're on a desktop. I do a lot of my seesawing. Okay, I don't really want to take a picture of myself, to be perfectly honest. I do a lot of my seesawing with my iPhone, actually. I make a lot of my activities with my phone. I do probably the majority of it with my phone to my MacBook. It's probably the most I do. I do some with my iPad, but I'd say I do the most with my phone, because with my phone I can take pictures of things, put them right into iMovie, or I don't know. This is my first iPhone. I've only actually had an iPhone for a fairly short time, so I don't know what took me so long. But
we are experiencing that for some folks, the classroom code has timed out on us. So
sure,
that's a good reminder that, and this I believe is set up as one of the safety features for Seesaw, so that class code does change frequently, so that if you have a class code somewhere, people can't just randomly get in whenever they want. So it seems like this must have been about an hour then.
Yeah, it was a 1 hour code. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
So there's your new code.
So that's a good reminder for all of us that once you set that class code, it's available to get into that class for that hour. So a bit of planning on our part as teachers, but this is a good way. And they even have that little reminder there: never share class sign-in codes on social media. right?
Mhm.
Part of using Seesaw is that this is a closed, safe group for your students. And so this timeout feature, while a little inconvenient, is part of that safety net. So that if a code does get out there and someone learns about it, it still won't let them back into the class. So you do have to keep updating this for your students once they're set up in the class for them
And that's really,
access.
that's just for the text code too. Your QR code, like I have my QR code printed out and posted in my room. So if they have to share devices or have to log out for whatever reason, they can always. Have you guys got this? I'm going to show you what the QR code is.
That's awesome.
So I always have, because you can print this, so your QR code is always the same. So I have that. I have a QR code sign printed. So if I wanted to print the poster, it would do this for me. It gives you the directions. It shows the kids exactly what to do. And so, and then it tells them that what they're going to click on. And then it shows my whole list of my class. It'll show everybody's name and their picture, because I have their pictures entered in there instead of an animal or whatever your choice is. And so if they get logged out or they have to share a device for whatever reason, I just always have my QR code posted in my room. So
All right.
that's a little easier
We
than
have just over 10 minutes remaining. What do you want to know? Teachers who are on, we have 10, 12 minutes left with Chris to explain some of these things. What else do you want to know about Seesaw? We have plenty of examples in the tip sheet. We have plenty of examples in the slide deck. So certainly we can go back and we can play some of those now for you, but you can also explore those in your own time. While she's here to answer your questions, what burning knowledge do you want? What do you want to see from a student perspective or from a teacher perspective? What do you want her to show you how to do? Throw up any questions in the chat box, or feel free just to ask your question out loud. We'll be able to, if you unmute yourself, we can just hear you and share that information.
I do want to say that I don't know how teachers feel about newsletters, but I always found Friday afternoons got to be rather stressful for me to get those out the door and the children out the door and everything at the end of the week done. I now do all of my newsletters digitally, and I only do them every 2 to 3 weeks because I am seesawing all the time. So the parents always know what's going on. And if a sheet goes home from the office or whatever, I snap a picture of it, again with my iPhone, and post it on Seesaw so they have it this way even before it comes home, if it gets home in the backpack. So there's a link to my blog, because Seesaw also has a blog attached with it. You can just blog your items with Seesaw. So there's a link to that in our presentation. So like all my newsletters I post on here, all of our snack calendars, everything is Seesaw. I hardly ever have to email anymore. Everything is, it's our everything. It's our education. It's our communication. It's my newsletters. So, oh, hey, that's me. So, you'll see I'll post the day after 100 day. I just grabbed a bunch of the pictures that we took and did a quick pic collage and posted that on there. And they knew a bunch of the STEM things that we did that day. So, the newsletters was a stressor.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How did you make sure like everybody was on Seesaw in your classroom? Like all the parents were signed up. How did you make sure that?
You get a notification.
I guess I mean like some, you know, you sent the invite, you sent the QR code home and everything. How are you making sure that parents are doing it? Because I have like half the class that have parents signed up, but half that have not. And I've sent it, I read it in the newsletter, like look for this and look for that. And
well, so how did I get them to do it, you mean? Because you obviously know if they did or didn't, because you
Right,
see.
right.
Right. So what was your
Yeah.
method? How did you increase
Okay.
the number of parents who signed up?
From last year. So I went to a PBS, actually did it this summer, a really cool integrate, innovate, and motivate um, seminar at MSUM this summer. And a project I did after that was to do a flipped back to school. So my back to school newsletter was digital. So or back to school letter was digital. So in order for them to get all my back to school information, they had to be seesawed, basically. And if they weren't, I set up sometimes that they could come into my classroom to get all signed up. And so there was probably by back to or open house night, which was, a week and a half, or a week or so before school, the 2 or so parents that hadn't signed up, I got them signed up that night. So
Kelly shared that as a first grade team, they decided not to send home any notes, and they only use Seesaw. And so they really just stressed that. So by having the teachers band together and really say everything that you need, all the information that we're sending home is coming through Seesaw. And so if you want to get information, you need to be on Seesaw. So that's a nice tip. So getting them at parent night. For me, if I was doing this with high school students, I had not used Seesaw, but I used Remind in my high school classroom. And I did something similar to Chris, where I had the information up at back to school night. And then I sent it home with the juniors and seniors. But obviously, if you think of the likelihood of a kindergartner getting something home to their parent, when you give it to a senior, you can almost guarantee that it will not get home to their parent, or at least that was my experience. So I had that available also at conferences, and I just kept making it available. The frustration certainly doesn't go away unless there is something that can be mandatory. But I like both of those tips. So back to school, flipping the back to school newsletter so that it was already digital, so that was really encouraging parents to go that way. To me, one of the things when I've talked to my siblings, they had different situations. They all have kids at West Fargo School District, and the teachers are using Seesaw. And my brother-in-law hated it because no one explained to him what it was or why he had to sign up for it. He just felt like it was another thing that he had to do for back to school. Whereas my brother, who is in the same district, had a very different experience because he said the teacher and the school were very clear about, here are the advantages, here's how we're using Seesaw, here's why we want you to be connected to Seesaw. So not saying that that's going to be a golden fix all, but sometimes I do think for me as a teacher, I got kind of caught up in how I was using something in the classroom and how I was using it with my students. And I didn't always do the best job communicating to my parents, the parents of my students, why I wanted them as parents to have access to this as well. So that could be a tiny part of it. So as you're asking parents to sign up for something new, make sure that they're getting all of that information about the why. Because then, now that my siblings, now that they've seen it, my brother-in-law, who was very skeptical, now thinks it's pretty cool because now he can see little notes from his daughter throughout the day, and he can see what his 6th grader is doing. And so even the skeptical parents really have been converted.
Right. Yeah, it was, I don't know if it was just a really lucky year this year, but last year too, the ones that bought into it last year really bought into it well. But
I want, if there aren't any more questions, Chris, will you go ahead? Well, I can throw this up here in the presentation. Will you talk a little bit about some of the apps that you love that help you and that also connect to Seesaw, or that are compatible with able to do things? And we have this in the slide deck, so it's the first link in the quick sheet. So she has these, but will you highlight just a couple? Because I got to watch you in your classroom, and it was really cool to see some of the things that you were doing with Seesaw, but also with these apps.
So, Doink is my new favorite. That one is the green screen app. And, if I was on my iPad, I'd take you on a little walk around the classroom. I suppose I could pick up my MacBook, but so I have a green corner in my classroom. I asked the right person if I could get a corner of my room painted, and nope, that's not the corner of my room, but that would be a fun place to be.
Sorry.
But no, that's cool. I could put myself there in my green corner. I really could. So I've done a lot of green screen activities. And so, for example, this fall we were talking about apple trees or whatever. So I did an activity with the kids picked their favorite season of the apple tree. And so we took pictures of those groups in front of the green screen and then put a winter tree behind them or different things like that. On my blog and in my classroom, I have some really cool shadow puppet. That's this one right over here, the bunny rabbit. I'm circling. You can make really neat little videos with shadow puppet. So at Veterans Day, we did some really neat directed drawings of eagles and talked about veterans and the importance there and put it to music. And did that in front of the green screen and made a neat Veterans Day video that we shared with parents. Pic collage we use quite a bit to summarize different special events in the classroom. Keynote I don't really use with my students, but would certainly be compatible. Chatterpix I haven't used yet with the kids. I've done it, but Chatterpix is really cool because you could record your students reading. And what Chatterpix does is you take a picture and then, I shouldn't say cut, but like you cut basically, and then the mouth moves of the picture. So you would take a picture of a character in a book and then slice on the screen the mouth, and then the child reads and it looks like the character on the screen is reading, so the mouth moves. So it's kind of like a puppet reading. It's sort of cool.
Those were some of the main ones that I saw in action when I was in your class.
My kids use a lot right now to build write words and stuff like that, write things and take a screenshot and send it to their parents.
So in the web slide deck, there are some getting started guides. There are some free webinars that Seesaw also leads that you can jump in for anything that they're doing. And Chris and I are both also available if you do have any other questions. So if you have some time and want to chat about different ways to use Seesaw, I'm happy to email back and forth or jump in on a call with you. Probably if you have a technical question about Seesaw, Chris would be a good go-to. I'm not seeing any other big questions, so I'm hopeful that people got at least one idea from today, and I would love, no one has a ton of time, but as you have a little bit of time, I would appreciate you answering. There are just a couple questions on this little Google Doc. So I put the link in the chat. So share something in there, give us a little bit of feedback. Feel free to throw up what your favorite idea would be, how you are going to use Seesaw as you go forward. And I hope that you find it as fun and engaging as I found it to watch it being used. I've been really blown away by the fact that these kindergarten and first graders are empowered to be so visual and vocal about their own learning and expressing their ideas and their understanding of things and being able to communicate that with each other and to be able to share that with their parents. So
and if you do something awesome, share that too. I'm always looking for something new to do with my kiddos.
So if there are any questions, Chris and I will hang for a couple minutes here if you want to chat here at the end. But otherwise, it looks like most folks are okay. So we're happy to hang out for a couple minutes and answer your questions. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your evening. I know teachers' time is precious, so we want to make sure that you're getting what you want out of this. Let us know if you have anything else you need, but otherwise, have a great night.